Hey guys, hope there's some of you out there watching having seen links about. Sorry for the rushing. I'm running on a little bit of a short time scale getting things done. I'm just putting up the chat now as best I can. I will do my best to keep talking whilst I try and sort things out, and also no doubt qualify for this race. This is the first time I have been involved in a league race, which is very, very unusual for me, but first time on 19. This is the F1 Beginners Series. We're going to see how good we can possibly be. Just removing the old connector, because if I don't remove the connector, everyone can hear me doing things, which is ideal. Hopefully that should have sorted that out. It's not showing me a microphone, so that's probably okay. Hopefully we're going to get into quick qualifying. We'll see how that goes. I'm just trying to pull up chat on the laptop now so I can see what's going on. Hopefully we'll be okay. We're in practice mode, so done a fair few laps. It shouldn't be the biggest issue, but we'll see how that shakes out, because you know, sometimes things go badly. It's ultimately what the price to pay here is. I haven't had a couple of multiplayer races online over the last week or so, just getting ready for this, and so far I think online I'm going to get about 5 laps in, because apparently it's really hard not to crash into everyone. I think maybe we'll go for a balance. That will do. That should look okay for a strat. There is going to be 6 human drivers in this and a whole bunch of non-human drivers, which you'd expect. I don't know how much practice time we've got, but I'm probably not going to spend a lot of it on the track, I'll be honest, because I've got a feeling I know my way around this track fairly well. Well, it has been a while since I've done any kind of anything on F1 properly, so we'll see how this goes. We'll hope we can make some magic happen. Yeah, it's my lovely purple car. I wish I could have shown you this before the race, but I was running a bit low. Session is that we do in fact have a setup saved, hopefully, for Australia. I do. Good times. I know this works.
Okay, we'll alter the setup of the car.
Someone has left the session, which is always a magical sign. Yeah, let's say half an hour worth of practice, which is plenty of time to talk, because I definitely don't want to do half an hour's worth of practice. So hey guys, thanks for coming to hang out. Get out there, and I will hopefully get the chat to come up in a second, because it is not playing right now. It's not on board with what I'm trying to do. I love modern technology. Yeah, so this is the first round of the F1 Beginner Series.
Okay, the circuit is clear at the moment. We're good to go.
It's going to annoy me by keep telling me to go out when I don't need to. Yeah, it's a quite a distance race, I believe, so it should be somewhere in the region of about, math top of heads, about 14 laps, I think. Give or take. I don't know how many laps Australia made. I think it's somewhere around 57. So that was roughly a big set. Yeah, hopefully saying stuff, and I can have a chat with why the devil not. Require things to work technologically. Yeah, the car is a lovely shade of purple, some yellow trim, running of course on 3. Why would I not be running 3? No need to know, but no. And if you don't, then I don't know why. I feel like I mentioned it more than once. Maybe I haven't. Maybe it's just me thinking I said something I didn't. Stranger things have happened. Hopefully we'll get this working. Hopefully I can almost see a chat. I can almost see a YouTube chat. So hi to YouTube. I will see who's in there in a second. I will say hi to Twitch in a second once Twitch comes up, because apparently this is taking all day. I don't know why. I don't know what it's taking. Something. Saying something. We'll see what happens. If you are in the chat, say hi, and I will be able to see what's going on. In due course, I have no doubt that should be working. Come on, Twitch. I don't know if it's just me, just doesn't seem to like anyone. I'm not entirely sure why, but it's definitely not liking me. Twitch and I are not currently friends. We'll see what we can make happen. Hopefully this will work quite nicely. We've got half-hour practice session before we do anything, which I think is just letting the latecomers come in through rather than expecting anything to happen beyond that. If you're watching the live version of this, I will probably have downloaded the video and put up a short version of everything down. Should anyone wish to go find that instead, that's more than acceptable to me, because, you know, I can only do so much. I'm very curious as to find out if this is in fact truly a beginner league, or if it's a if it's going to be a beginner league. Like I said, at this moment I'm in the league and I'm barely qualified as a beginner. So we'll see how this all works out. We're nearly there.
The weather in Melbourne is often unpredictable, making it difficult for the driver and engineers alike to find the optimal setup. Since the revised engine formula in 2014, engines have been required to turbocharge 1.2 Mercedes have dominated taking both instructors and drivers every year, putting to an end record dominance between 2010 and 2013. New safety measures have been introduced since the start of the 2018 season. Drivers are now required to wear gloves.
At the end of this session, we need to return 2 sets of tyres. We'll give back the 2 most worn sets, so we may as well get the most out of them while we can. They won't be available for the rest of the weekend, though, so don't run too hard on anything you might need later on.
There are 46 vehicles allowed, totaling over 2,500 over the course of the Grand Prix. The grid remains largely unchanged, with Ferrari, Mercedes and Red Bull, among others, all holding on to their drivers. Aston Martin strengthened their relationship with Red Bull by becoming a title sponsor of the Milton
There we go, I popped up in chat, now I can see what's going on out there. So if you are there, say hi and I can see what's going on. That's how that's going to work. So I didn't feel like I needed to do a lot of practice laps, but I might go out on track just to have a little shuffle around. Because there's honestly no good reason why I wouldn't. Also, I think I've got all the assists on because I was trying to relearn tracks. So don't hold it against me, I don't normally use them. I think I just forgot to turn it off because I was in a hurry to get online today. Let's see who's on track, who's doing flying laps for Show Me Your Mice, Nesters, Reigns, and Knowles are in Garage, Haven. A few other guys who apparently were supposed to have joined but haven't. There's a full grid. There wasn't a full grid the other day, so that's when I signed up there were only 6 drivers, and we seem to have now attracted a full grid. So let's see what we can do with regards to that.
All personnel be aware. Car leaving.
Doing one more on a free camp, like you're actually seeing the front arrows at work, so I can go plough through corners I wouldn't normally be able to go plough. Fine, no one saw it, no one cared, it's now fine. We'll start seeing where we are. We'll see if they are actually improving again. We'll follow the
Oh, you made me crap.
That last lap gives you P3. We're in P3 now. There's 3 laps of fuel remaining. Understood, stopping this lap.
I've just done that on hards. If their lap was on soft, that means I'm about on par.
Our best lap so far is a 1 minute 28.3.
They're all on hards. Okay, it's not quite so acceptable. 1.4 down. There's time to be found. Definitely time to be found. But we'll see what we can make happen. Somehow. Chat, something is occurring. Don't be shy, that's what the chat box is for. Have a chat, guys.
We're fourth in the speed trap, 192.3 miles per hour.
Fourth in the speed trap. Well, let's have a look at the setup then. Let's see what I can do with that. Maybe I can take it and notch out the rear wing. Let's give that a test. Let's see if taking one notch up the rear wing helps. Because, as I said,
Standing by.
Either is very possible. We'll see how that goes.
just want to remind you to keep an eye on your tyre temperatures, which you can do on the temperature panel of the MFD. We monitor carcass temperature and surface temperature, and you'll get the best performance when they're both inside a normal operating window. Surface temps tend to fluctuate faster, so try a few laps with the data open and get a feel for how to control them. We have 2 laps of fuel remaining. Confirmed, we'll receive you at the end of this lap. Best lap so far is a 1:28.3.
Nice and easy. Job done.
We're 5th in the speed trap, 192.6 miles per hour.
That should have fixed something on YouTube that wasn't quite working the way it did. So we'll see. Let's go. Make this go now.
Okay, just want to remind you to keep an eye on your tyre usage. We have to give 2 sets back at the end of this session, so they'll be unavailable for the rest of the weekend. We'll hand over the 2 most worn sets, so don't ruin tyres you might want to use later.
Haven't said anything in the chat, and I can only see 2 viewers on YouTube, which is sad, and I've got a few so, you know, it's all working out. Let's see if we do one more lap. Tie it together before we get to...
Checks complete. All personnel be aware, we have a car leaving.
Before we get to the qualifying second one, hopefully they can stack it all. But I do have a feeling it's going to be... So I've got a feeling it's going to be one shot qualifying. There's always where it goes wrong. Give me like a 5 short second qualifying or something like that. That's okay, that I can solve, I just saw that. Hopefully this will work out, because I'm flying blind, switching from Xbox to PC. It shouldn't be too big an issue. Hopefully that'll just put together this lap for me nicer. Let's see. I say this now, OBS isn't playing. Just to make life easy, OBS isn't playing for me. Hopefully that should drop it down. Hopefully. let me know if what you're hearing sounds better, because I've just dropped all the inputs down, so hopefully it should be looking slightly better now. I saw that. It's okay. We can solve the engine problem. Audio levels, engine, music effects. Let's just turn that down, and hopefully that will kill the problem, because I think I need to keep speech on so I can still hear the engine near. Let's try this. Let me know if that's. Let me know if that's. Oh,
are you all right? Engine off. Engine off.
I've broken the car. I guess we're going to find out in qualifying, because that was the wrong time to come out of the pause menu. I did not choose my moment then. I did not choose the moment to come out of that pause menu very well at all. Let's see if I can see what's going on with the... Hopefully, if I go on board here, that should be the same volume you would get from me on board. Is that still okay, Kate? Does that sound better? You need to apologise, because I have actually I've driven so many laps of this track over the last 9 years or whatever it's been of F1 games that I'm pretty sure I can drive this track blindfold. I mean, I won't try it because there's other people on the track. I might do a time trial blindfold video at some point and see if I can pull it off. But I'm pretty sure I can do this track blindfold and still put in a fairly respectable time at this point. I say fairly respectable, but I'm in a beginners league right now, and I'm currently sitting 2.5 seconds behind the leader. So we'll see how that goes. But like I said at the start of the broadcasty type streamy thing, I've not raced online in a while, and you got to get the excuses in early. Classic Mourinho behaviour. And yeah, I've not really played much offline of late, because life, because I've managed to keep myself too busy despite being essentially unemployed for the last few months. Yeah, it's I know I've not put the laps in, so I'm still a little bit rusty. The fact that I'm having to play with a beginner setup as well, so the track guide I've got on is just because I left it on because I was learning a track last night. But all the things like the assists and things, I believe, are mandatory. I don't think I can turn them off, which means that I'm having to brake when the computer starts telling you, when the Xbox starts telling me to brake. It's very frustrating sometimes. And also, for anyone that is used to driving racing games like a normal, regular racing human, really confusing. Because it tells you it's got full brake assist, so in theory you should be able to go down just holding down the right trigger, just full throttle, and the car should slow you down in the appropriate places. Like that's what a full brake assist is supposed to be for. But then sometimes it kicks in about 50 yards too early to brake for the corner properly, and you can't stop it. And sometimes it kicks in midway through the corner, at which point it's too late to turn in. It's really strange how they've done it. I don't understand. Like, I get you want to make it accessible for beginners and stuff so they can learn their braking points and that kind of stuff, but it's just not ideal. Not ideal. But also, I thought, at least if I enter a beginner league, if it's actually full of beginners, I might have a fighting chance of coming out of this looking decent. Whereas I know if I went into one of the higher leagues against, the top drivers, someone stacked it into the pit wall, your Arabs and your Bens and those kind of guys. If I went into a league with those guys, I would end up getting lapped at least 4 times within the first 5 laps. So I've got to know my limits. I've never pretended to be a world class F1 gaming driver. The fact that I use a controller, not a steering wheel, probably doesn't help. But obviously, welcome to student towers, where I don't have time for I don't have space for a racing rig. I've barely got space for a bed and me. So getting a racing rig in here, a sim rig in here, was never going to be an option, which has made it all the more amusing that I'm currently trying to learn iRacing using a controller. iRacing is not designed for a controller. It does not work with a controller input. But I feel like I have to beat the odds, and I have to learn to be able to master it on a pad, because A, pride, and B, because the games cost me like £119 or something stupid. And I thought, it offers controller support, therefore it must be drivable with a controller, and I'll just have some fun with it until I can get space for a sim rig and learn to do it Nope. I think it's as acceptable. It works with a controller input because they want you to spend money on buying it, and then find it's just not possible. Or maybe I'm just really, really bad. Maybe that's also quite a possibility. I'm thinking of, I've been trying to reach out to some fellow YouTubers who do iRacing to see if one of them will teach me for charity, but apparently no one wants to do that, which is sad. So anyone watching who knows how iRacing works, assuming someone is watching, get in touch with me on the old Twitter if you'd like to do something nice for a charity, and we'll have a laugh whilst you coach me in pit wall mode through how to be a semi-competent driving human. Worst case scenario, you get to laugh at how many times I can stack it into a wall. Best case scenario, you get to, I don't know, turn me into an iRacing legend. I don't know if that's possible, to be fair, but we'll pretend like it is. Pretend like it is for business purposes. Let's advance through this. I'm hoping this is going to go straight into a quali session. We're going to try and burn out a fast lap. It is one-shot qualifying. Oh, one-shot quali is the worst. One-shot quali is the worst because I've now not been on track in solidly like 10 minutes after I stacked it into a wall. Yeah, 4.8 off is not ideal. It's definitely not ideal. I think the fact that I was on hards and they all went to slightly softer setups probably helped. But we'll see. Right. Session starts in 21 seconds. Let's do a full focus, it's been so, even if it's a beginner online league, you go around, these are the guys who probably play the game all the time, who are just league racing for the first time, but probably do play it a lot more than I do. So like I said, excuses in early because I'm a true fan of getting your excuses in early. But yeah, I think they probably play this more than I do. We'll do our best with though, and see what we can do. I'm having to watch the countdown for the DRS opening point because I can't actually hear the beep anymore. It turned down the effects, the engine noise. I didn't for a second consider it might turn down the beep that I'd used to guide me as to when I can open DRS, which is interesting. That could play out slightly problematic during the race, but I suppose also I have to be sufficiently near someone racing someone on track in the race for that to be an issue. So we'll just try and tie this lap together. I don't know what this lap is looking like because I can't see a timer anywhere on screen. Presumably there is a way to see a timer. That's telling me I'm 50 seconds on split 1, split 2, sorry. That's okay. Let's turn the DRS open because I almost heard the beep that time. Through into the tricky third sector, which is just one of the worst sectors in racing for my money. It's just so tight. I think it was probably better back in the day when cars were narrower, but now it's just... I've fluffed it. I've fluffed it. I shouldn't have started trying to explain why this track isn't as good with modern F1 cars, because that has destroyed the lap, and that's going to come in probably in the back half of the pack. Third. Oh, I'll take third. I'll take second row. We'll definitely take a second row. That's a good start. I don't know how it was a second row. Still a second and a half off. I think if I hadn't messed it up in that last sector, maybe I'd have been closer to the first row. I also think Show Me Your Mice might be my favourite gamer tag of the year thus far. May well be my favourite gamer tag of the year so far. Also, that's going to annoy me because that's going to be people who keep talking. I should have silenced that before we got into the race. And I don't have time now, so excuse the pinging in the background that's about to happen. It's my friend Jake, who will never send one message when 77 will do. If you are watching, Jake, I love you, man. But like, bruh, one message is all I'm saying. Don't do anything reckless. Right, good plan. I can't change the start tyres, can I? So I can only play with the lap time and I think the fuel. There's not really a quicker way around. We are going to quick, drop down to there. Less fuel. Start. Right. Got to get a good start. 15 laps. 15 laps. It's going to take a good start. 5 red lights and we're away. Right, into the race. We're going to try and follow Noel around the track and not lose too many spots. There's a lot of people driving exactly the same car, which is very confusing. Means I'll never know who's doing what. Noel has gone wide. Try and stay safe there. I don't know how we stayed out of trouble. I have no idea. That could have gone very badly. We're going to try and cut round the inside. Oh, we've touched, we've lost some wing. There's a yellow flag behind us. This is going to be... Oh. Cheers, Jeff. Good stuff. Right, okay, we're going to start losing the leaders because our front wing is damaged. But we should... Safety car. Oh. I don't know how we've ended up with a safety car this early, so it must have gone very badly wrong behind me. Thing is though, it's a beginners league, so normally I would come in here under the safety car, I'd take the free pit stop, stick on a set of hards and try and go to the end. But I have a feeling this won't be the last safety car we see today. I think as long as we can stay with the 2 guys ahead of us, rather than getting caught up in what's going on behind, aim for a podium. Yeah, I think as long as we can achieve that, driving this slowly is really hard, then I feel like we're probably going to be in a good position to see another safety car, use that as our free pit stop. Ideally a sort of 2-3 laps time would be the time. They're racing under the safety car. They don't seem to understand that under a safety car you don't overtake. Hopefully they'll figure that out. We'll keep it all going. Stay behind Mark Cubs. It wasn't difficult. Just stay behind. Jesus, don't brake check me under the safety car. What are you doing? These guys are not friends. They are not friends at all. There is a lot of wheel banging going on for under the safety car kind of racing. I'll keep an eye on the tyre temps as well because, oh, I've lost it. I've lost it. I've stacked it. Death Racer has taken advantage. That was probably a mistake. Switching through screens, going through corners was not my moment. Why are they all driving the same car? What's wrong with them? Why would you do that? Come on, guys. Get creative. There's a whole menu that lets you pick colour schemes and stuff, and you're all driving this yellow-orange, this blue-orange monstrosity thing. I don't know why. I'm trying to keep the tyre temps up, trying to keep the brake temps up. It's not going terribly well. I am going to have Death Racer off the line, by the way. That is going to be a thing. I will take him. That is not something I have an issue with. Like the safety car to go in though, so we can go racing, because I mean it's a video game. Whatever damage was on the track can just disappear, surely. Like just despawn it. Just despawn. It's, oh come on, buddy. It's not hard. I was giving you a way severe 5-second penalty. He ran into me. I was well wide of the boy. It's unnecessary stuff. It's going to be fine though. We are going to get back on the podium. In fact, now I think about it, let's go into lean mix. Let's save some fuel. Let's try and stay on the track. That's ideal. Stay on the track is mission number 1. It's because we're moving so slowly, I'm losing concentration. I'm losing the ability to concentrate because there's nothing actually doing. That 5-second penalty is going to hurt as well. Really going to hurt. I didn't deserve that 5-second penalty at all. I went wide to give him space to turn in because I was warming up my brakes, and he turned into me, and I don't know why. There was no reason for him to be going left through a right-hand corner. It doesn't make sense. Are we going to get a safety car in this lap? That would be ideal. That was a deliberate wide, not an I wasn't paying attention wide, by the way. Before anyone asks questions, that was a deliberately I went wide so I could get the brakes warmed up. That wasn't a oh come on you bugger.
Your front wing is damaged. Expect a lot of understeer unless we replace it. Check your MFD for a new strategy option.
Is this a to the end strategy? It doesn't feel like it is, does it, bud?
Copy.
But it's probably the right thing to do. We're going to have to...
Safety car is in this lap. Safety car
Oh,
in this lap. Let's make sure those tyres are up to temperature, and remember there is no overtaking until the timing line. Stay in position until the green flags.
that one was my fault. That one I will accept responsibility for. That was my fault. Oh.
Are you okay? That was a big one. Confirm you're okay, please.
So I don't know how I did that. I mean, I do know how I did that because Kate has literally just told me in the chat, and it caught my eye just as I was going through that corner. It's not your fault, Kate, at all. I know exactly how I did that. It's because I was mucking around with screens whilst going through corners, which is exactly what Kate just told me not to do. You couldn't make it up. You really couldn't make it up. Well, that was the league racing debut. Let's see how the rest of this race goes. We've got the spectator menu up anyway. We can see what's going on. We may as well just enjoy this together and see how this goes. I can't believe I've just stacked it under the safety car. I don't think I've ever stacked it under a safety car. Don't think I've ever done that in my life. Don't ever stack that under a safety car. How do you do that? That's mad. That's well, there's 7 races left in this championship. Dan, I'm currently on the Xbox. I've just seen your thing in the chat. Yeah, I don't know how I stacked that into a... For those who might just be joining me, we're currently watching the race rather than playing, well, rather than driving in the race, because I might have been a complete moron and been fiddling around with checking temps and things, and organising a pit stop for a wing I'd broken because I wasn't paying attention under a safety car, and I stacked it into a wall under the safety car because one of the kinks coming through into sector, I think it's the middle of sector 2 I went out at. There's a kink in one of the straights, and because I was playing with screens, I forgot there was a kink in the straight, and I just went straight into the wall. So I wasn't really paying attention. And the embarrassing thing about this, apart from the fact I've just stacked it under the safety car, and feel free to drop all the Fs for stacking it under the safety car anyway. The worst thing about that is that Melbourne has like 3 really good straights where you can do things like you can check your MFD, you can check your temps and stuff. It feels like you've got all the time in the world to get it done. And of course, I'm doing it under a safety car on the one straight where I don't have that. I don't have the time to get that done. Whilst talking about how I don't have time to get it done, and knowing the guy in front of me keeps brake checking me. So that's not the one. But it's a good chance to kind of scout the competition. I think this Noel fella might be the star of the competition. Had I stayed on track, I think I would have got past Death Race. Although this guy Shawmauer, who I'm guessing is staying with the series to the end. It's difficult to tell who's who on this because they're all driving exactly the same car. Yeah, it's difficult to tell who's who. But yeah, I think these guys hopefully will actually take the time to design a car at some point. Might be the ones to watch because behind Mark, who's just going into the pits, this Mark Cubs fella, everyone behind is well behind, like well behind. I don't know whether so this is I don't know. I know exactly why. So when you for those who aren't necessarily familiar with F119, on online mode you have the ability to design and create your own car, and this is the base car it gives you. This is the absolute most basic vehicle it allows you to have, which is this blue-green, it's blue-orange, I don't know why I keep saying green, it's blue-orange monstrosity. I really hate it. When I first saw it in the car creation mode, I was not convinced. I was not a fan of this at all. So I spent the time changing one. But I think either some people, they spend more time racing the actual cars and the because it doesn't affect performance at all. They spend more time racing the real official cars than they do racing their own cars, because you often have the option of either or. When they have to have their own livery, they don't really understand that it's all the same livery, and it's awful because either they haven't discovered the create mode for it, or they just don't care, and so you end up with. I dare say if I go back all the way through this grid, I'm going to see. Look at that. That's a prime example. They've all gone with the basic standard livery. There's 5 cars in that shot, all with the standard livery, and they've all got the same. How are you telling these cars apart? I mean, this guy at least has spent the time on it, and I actually quite like that. That looks alright. The red and green together, that's quite a nice combination. This is clearly someone who cares about how he looks while he's driving around. And another one of the same car. This guy looks like he's put in the effort, the guy behind. See, that's all he's done is changed a couple of colours. He hasn't even changed the livery, and it still looks better than the base car. Again, that this man's put the time in. Haven has put the time in. Kirby has put the time in, which is maybe should have put more time in. Black background under red with pinky purple. Well, yeah, perhaps more than he cares about learning racing lines. Although, to be fair, I probably put more time into my car than I may have spent learning racing lines, or not to play with the MFD whilst I'm going around at speed, perhaps. I say this, I mean, single player, I'm okay. Like I've got the difficulty turned right up, and I'm generally competitive. I say generally competitive. I still drive a Williams, so generally competitive is relevant. I sometimes finish in the you know outside the bottom two, um, but I'm generally okay. I'm generally all right. But then also I generally it's because when I find myself sat behind a safety car in single player, which is how I normally play it, I can predict what the AI is going to do. It's not going to suddenly slam the brakes on. It's not going to do anything massively stupid. It's going to wiggle a bit to warm up the tyres, and that's about it. That's all it really does. Like I can quite happily follow that around and fiddle on my phone and not make a lot of difference. But for some reason, I forgot that I'm playing against other humans on the interwebs in a racing league, uh, where people might not, especially if it's a beginner league, where people might not understand that essentially, if you're following the safety car, you just want to go half throttle and go round the track on the racing line. It's not massively challenging. Um, yeah, yeah. They should put out warnings about distracted driving. I don't know why they don't care. It feels like there should be like a major advertising campaign. Um, yeah, I suppose the big benefit to this at least is that I don't drink. So at least I wasn't drunkenly distracted driving. I was just being an idiot, distracted driving. Um, but yeah, it looks like this Noel fella's having a good lap. He must be miles ahead by now. He is. He's 20 seconds. Is he pitted yet? I know I've got the option to find out if he's pitted. Detail stops. He has stopped. This guy's just walking away. And I felt like I could keep pace with Cubs. Like I feel like if I managed to not crash into the wall, I'd probably be within the top 5 at this point, maybe. Um, but also, you know, this Noel fella is special. Uh, Now, see, I've never tested playing dirt whilst high, but I can imagine it would be, because if there's one time you don't want your sense of time and space to be ever so slightly slowed down, it's probably whilst rallying. It's almost certainly whilst rallying. It's not quite so bad when you do it on a track, because you've got wide open spaces all around you, or a run-off area. Or if you get it slightly wrong, you've got that space and time. Whereas rallying, generally speaking, if you don't hit your turn, you do hit a tree. So you definitely will end up hitting a tree. That's without doubt. Whilst rallying. I know I've tried rallying even without being drunk or high or anything, and I struggle to avoid hitting trees. I most assuredly couldn't do it under the influence of anything. Although in fairness, as I've just proved, I also cannot keep a car on a track under a safety car. So there's that. But if you're watching this back at a future date, because the stream will stay up on the YouTube, because I'm always too lazy to take it down. I've never understood why people watch streams back, but they do. If you are watching this on the stream later on the YouTube channel later on, I will be doing some F1 2020 content when it comes out. I will actually be doing a proper career series. I entered this league just for a bit of fun and just to sharpen myself back up before I do it. That was largely it, and also because it gives me a chance to test OBS a little bit by streaming it, because I can see just what it's going to look like in terms of frame rate, in terms of quality, so I can make adjustments when I will inevitably watch it back later, just to see how it all looks, see how it all came together. because I've only recently bought the capture card, which I think I've mentioned on the channel before. I mean, I've mostly played PC stuff for the life of the channel, and that's just simply a case of load game on PC, load into OBS, hit record. Um, Whereas with this, I have to have a capture card which connects my HDMI from my Xbox into the PC through various gubbins. And yeah, Lucas, I've played F1 games for literally since the my first one was Grand Prix 2 actually on the old Microprose one in about 95-ish, 96. It might have been before that. I forget how old I was. Maybe, yeah, 94, 95-ish sounds about right. But this actual modern F1 series I've literally been playing since the start. And I'm generally not awful when I'm paying attention. The first time I ever streamed it. So there are little there are some teething problems that we've discovered. Like I need to pay attention to what I'm doing. But yeah, I've been around a little while. About a decade or wherever we're at with this incarnation. The first one was what, 2010? Because I didn't have 9, because 9 was only on the Nintendo. So yeah, this is the 9th, coming into the 10th year. I think I've been playing this version. Which I hope answers the question, Lucas. I hope. I do need some kind of screen. I'm not sure how to make a screen reader work with because I'm multi-platforming, because I'm on Twitch and on YouTube simultaneously. I need to figure out how to make a screen reader work to let it talk to me. Lucas, I do know about the new F1 2020 game. I'm really hyped for it. I'm especially hyped for the ability to create your own team now. I think that's probably going to be my main thing I do for 2020 on that, because as much as I've never uploaded playing an F1 career mode. I've played F1 career modes, and I find I tend to there's not enough depth to keep me excited. Once you do your quali, you do your practice, you get all your development points, and then you stick it into a part, and then you wait three races for that part to appear, and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like I want more to do between races than just go race to race to race and hope a part will eventually appear, and then it never does because it always fails in development. And I just get frustrated, and I have to stop playing for a couple of weeks. And then I'll pick it up again, and the same thing will happen, and I'll go mad on a mad cycle. But I'm quite excited for the new game. First, for the creating a team mode, I think that's a really good addition. I think it should have been done a while ago, but obviously I understand that you've got contractual issues with sponsors and manufacturers and suppliers, and it's a lot of paperwork to sort out. You think it took them 9 incarnations of the game to have driver transfers in career mode, because they needed to persuade teams that it was actually, no one was going to believe that Lewis Hamilton in real life was going to jump from team to team to team to team to team to team, but he might do it in the game. No one's going to go, oh, I'm in season 7 of my F1 career mode, and now Max Verstappen drives a Haas, so therefore clearly this is something disrespectful. It's not disrespectful to Red Bull, it's just a game, like, get over it. It just keeps the game interesting. But also I'm quite interested to see how they're going to pull off the Michael Schumacher career mode thing this year, because this year's Prost-Senna content was among the most disappointing things I've ever seen in a video game. I think I don't know what from Cody's is going to watch this, but it was genuinely bad. You took one of the greatest rivalries of all time, one of the greatest rivalries in the history of Formula One, Prost and Senna, undoubtedly two of, if not the two best drivers in history. And you reduce their 4-5 season long war to a couple of time trials, a couple of pursuits, and an overtake challenge. And it was just, if you couldn't be bothered to program in actual scenarios from their careers, don't do it. Just don't, you know, let me play their battle in Japan in, was it 1990, 91? 1990 I think it was, because 91 was when they ended up in the war, right? Let me play, the Australian Grand Prix of of '86. Let me do that. I'd have liked to have been able to start it by getting into a Tolman and driving Monaco '84, which would have required them putting in a different layout of Monaco rather than the modern slow one, like unnecessarily slow one. They'd have had to put classic Monaco in, but I'd like to have been able to play that '84 Monaco Grand Prix as a scenario. I think that would have been outstanding, because that to me is one of the well, actually that race, and it's on YouTube if anyone actually wants to check it out. That race has two of the greatest drives ever seen by anyone in Formula One. The '84 Monaco Grand Prix was of course famous for the fact that Senna in a Tolman, which was basically a shopping trolley, managed to catch Alain Prost at a rate of knots and would have beaten him had and James Hunt. There's no way of putting it better than James Hunt's explanation on commentary, which is he basically explains that he keeps saying as the rain starts coming down, I suspect that the French officials will do something French to help the French driver out. A good win there by Noel, by the way. 45 seconds is dirty. Yeah, and then lo and behold, just as Senna is about to pass and absolutely destroy Prost, a red flag came out. But what people don't realise is that back in the background to that, there was a German driver called Stefan Belloff, who sadly died I think it's about 6 months later, sadly died. Who came from right at the back of the grid and was in third and was actually catching Senna. Unbelievable driver. He was best known for his endurance racing. He had some outstanding performances at Le Mans. And had he not died so tragically, I think he was about 31 when he died or something, if he was that even. Had he not died, he would have been spoken about in the same breath as Senna and Schumacher and Prost and all the top drivers. He was unbelievable. But yeah, so I'm hoping when they've brought this Schumacher career retrospective thing in, I really hope they do it better. I'd like to be able to play the big Schumacher races. Like he had two outstanding performances in Spa, for example, and his Monaco performances and all that kind of stuff. I'd love to have a go at that. And yeah, the graphics and the crashes could definitely be better. If nothing else, I'd settle for just not having the same single animation every time you break a suspension. That would be the dream for me. I'd like to not break something every time, or not have the same animation every time a suspension goes. Right, that race is. It's safe to say that's one of the most dominant wins I've ever seen online. I think this lad that won it, I think, is the guy who owns the league. And I suspect he's probably pretty good. I suspect he's going to be a challenge. We've driven 31 kilometres, which is impressive. Yeah. So looking, yeah, it was a solid. For a 45 second. I don't think I'd have been 45 seconds behind him. I mean, his best lap was a 1:26. I guess my best lap it was a 1:42, but of course it was the safety car lap. So, and what was my quali time? My quali time was what, a 1:28. I feel like I'd have been close. I can fairly consistently keep up that quali time. So, yeah, I feel like I'd have been at least second in that race, barring any mishaps, or any other mishaps, bar crashing under the safety car. Apologies for the cough, by the way. It's just come on the last couple of days. I don't think I've caught the lurgy. I think I'm just suffering. We'll have another league race next week in Azerbaijan. But hey, since we're here, since we're doing stuff, I may as well just do something nice and offliney, because why not, right? Why not? Let's do something. I'm not going to go into my F1 career mode because it's going a bit too well. Um, it's going too well. I don't like it. Let's take some proper cars. Proper cars, not this weird modern stuff. Let's drive a real car. A real car. Something like Lauda's McLaren, maybe. Sorry, I say that's James Hunt's McLaren. Lauda's Ferrari. I love these old cars. They make me happy. These two might be two of my favourite cars of all time. And like I said, I'm biased. I grew up literally around the corner from Williams. I worked there. I was a Williams employee. Don't assume that'll ever make me good at driving, but I was a Williams employee. And I do have a soft spot for these cars. I mean, this is the one for me. This is Daddy's favourite car. Let's take my favourite car around probably my favourite track. The circuit of Gilles Villeneuve, and I'm not even going to bother qualifying because there's no point. We'll keep the AI on 75. Why not? Yes, Lucas, I'm definitely excited for the Grand Prix. Definitely excited for that to come back. It's going to be weird, empty grandstands, but also I watched the return of IndyCar last week with empty stands. And actually, to be fair, it wasn't that different, but then it was on an oval. So, generally speaking, on ovals, because the noise of the engine gets trapped in the bowl that is the oval, you don't hear much of the crowd anyway. So it did make a lot of difference. Whereas on an open circuit, it might be very different. Certainly at Williams, at Silverstone, which is, if you've ever been, it's a vast expanse of a place. It's not a small place, and sound really does carry. So I guess we'll see how that goes. That might be a surreal experience because the sound of engines carries, and without a crowd there to distract from it and dampen the noise, I think it'll be very strange. But we'll get used to it. For as long as we have to get used to it, hopefully we'll see people actually back in the stands, able to enjoy racing in the near future. Because who doesn't enjoy actually watching racing happen? But yeah, I love this circuit. I'm definitely going to stack it into the wall of champions. Let's not have any illusions here. I'm definitely going to stack it into the wall of champions. Oh, of course, this is back in the day. This was the days where you didn't have to change tyres, so you actually get a real car. Let's just have a quick look to see. Will it tell us what else we've got on the grid? We've got 398 McLaren MP4s ahead of us, which is filth. Some 96 Williams ahead of us or around us. They're going to be quick. I've got a feeling the MP4 may have been slightly faster than the FW14B. So this could be a really interesting race. It is a shame they've never bothered to license whole grids from the past. I think that's something I'd like to see in the future. I'd like to have the option to be able to race a 90s season. I think that would be really good. I don't know how that works licensing wise, because I guess you'd need permission from all the drivers on the grid in those days. But then I suppose they managed to get permission from Senna and Prost. It shouldn't be massive, from Senna's family at least and Prost. It shouldn't be difficult to get permission from guys like Gerhard Berger and Jean Alesi, who, by the way, two of the best drivers never to win a championship. Just an opinion, but Jean Alesi and Gerhard Berger in any other era of F1 would be world champions. But they were on a grid with Prost, with Senna, with Mansell, with Piquet. I mean, these guys were absolutely among the greatest of all time. And people like to talk about Lewis Hamilton, and he is, without doubt, the best in the world, or the best in the F1 world right now. He says, being distracted again, and losing a wing, and the entire car. Um, yeah, people talk about Hamilton being the best of all time. He's not. He's the best on the grid right now, but he wouldn't get near a Senna or a Prost, or maybe even a Mansell. But that's just my opinion. Um, my favourite team, Lucas. I'm a Williams guy. I'm a Williams guy through and through. Like I said, I grew up literally a 10-minute walk from their factory in Grove, um, and I worked there when I was a kid. So I said when I was a kid, when I was about 16, 17. So they're very much deeply ingrained in me at this point with the Williams team. They are among the best places I've ever worked. Some of the best people I've ever worked with as well. It was a real pleasure being there, and they treat everyone in the team like family. It doesn't matter if you're the cleaner or a race driver, you get treated like your family, which is, it's an amazing. That's an amazing environment to be working in. But it's a big lap times to get back involved in this race. um, but I did need to change that wing because these cars without a front wing, oh, like you need to single an inch of the front wing off these cars and they are undrivable, and they're barely drivable as it is. Um, but I don't know how people won titles in cars like this. I don't know. I just don't. I guess they were better than everything else on the grid, which is slightly terrifying. But driving this next to driving a modern F1 car is chalk and cheese. It really is chalk and cheese. It's night and day. Um, they're such different cars now. And this feels like driving a tank next to driving a modern Mercedes, which just shows you how good your Sennas and your Prosts and co were, because they managed to pull off some incredible speeds, some incredible performances in cars that were nowhere near as good as what we have today. And I can't help but think, oh, Wall of Champions, lost a wheel. Let's maybe flashback that. Uh, we'll maybe flashback that a little bit. Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how big the difference is between then and now. But yeah, just there's my thoughts on modern versus former F1 teams and working for Williams, which I would go back and do in a heartbeat. Probably not in the same role I was in before, because I was in the hospitality area before. And as much fun as hospitality is, I'm also 35 and I don't feel like I want to be doing corporate hospitality anymore, especially now I have a law degree and could probably make myself more useful in other areas of the team. But I'd love to go back and work for Williams someday. Assuming it doesn't get sold, I'm quite sad that it might be up for sale. While I was at Williams, I got to know Frank and Claire fairly well, as well as you can know someone from a different department who owns your company. Which is to say, I wouldn't say we were going golfing together and taking holidays, but we'd stop and chat. But yeah, it's just, yeah, I know I'd go back there. It was such a nice place to work, and in almost any role that wasn't catering, to be honest. So we're going to put in a purple lap, which is definitely good. I don't know if we've got enough laps left to catch up, but if we do, we will achieve that. In theory, we shall achieve it. Through here, through the S's. I don't think it's going to punish me for going over track limits, and if it does, who cares? Cross the line. That's a fastest. 17 seconds. All right, we'll make that disappear. Don't you panic. We'll make 17 seconds disappear. Of course, I need to not check the chat whilst going around corners. If we could not check the chat whilst going around corners, if you put something in the chat and I don't check it for a little while, just assume I'm concentrating on the race, because I'm slowly learning my lesson about not checking chat whilst I go around fast speed corners close to walls, because to have a proper chat whilst driving this Circuit Villeneuve is not ideal, because these walls come up fast and they come up close. Very fast, very close. Let's hit the hairpin nicely. Job done. Good times, and let's come out with some speed. See what we can do. Like every time I come onto this bridge, no matter what car I'm driving, I want to hit the DRS right there. And I was like, this car doesn't have DRS. It's a 92 spec Williams. Why would it have DRS? Obviously, it's not there. DRS is such a modern thing, and it feels like it's been around forever. I probably should have braked more going through past the wall of champions, but it's fine. We survived. The car didn't break because these cars are made out of real materials rather than being made out of plastic and dreams like they are now. Yeah. If anyone, by the way, is looking for a name for the modern era of F1, plastic and dreams would be what I'd call it. I know it's carbon fibre or whatever, but it genuinely just plastic and dreams. Plastic and dreams. I'm such an old man. Things were better back in my day. We had real cars made out of proper steel and nobody had seat belts or safety devices. We lost a driver like every 10 minutes, but nobody... I sound like Colin Chapman. If you don't know who Colin Chapman is, you feel free to Google that. He was quite famous for treating drivers like they were disposable. Not as disposable as Enzo Ferrari did, who genuinely believed that a human life was worthless. In many more ways than one. But yeah, Colin Chapman very much saw humans as people that should be willing to die for his experiments. Although, you know, I think he mellowed a little bit after Jim Clark, but not a lot, because Jim Clark was not the last guy to die in a Lotus. That gap is coming down ahead of us. It's come down by a couple of seconds over the last lap. Yeah. Also, like, if anyone watching is anywhere near as big an F1 nerd as I am, or wants to be anywhere near as big an F1, I don't know why you want to be. But if you happen to be in the misfortune that you're either there or heading that way, of being that big a Formula 1 and just a general motor racing nerd as I am, I recommend you check out Aidan Millward's channel on YouTube. He's got a series called Storytime. He's mostly a sim racer, but he has a series called Storytime where he tells stories from the past of motor racing. Some of them are really fascinating. Things like there's a story about a couple of brothers who were involved in, I think it was NASCAR or IndyCar, who were also smuggling drugs for the CIA or something. It's a really fascinating story, and things about how people, like, you get these innovative engineers who'd find these fantastic ways to cheat the system and avoid getting caught. There's just some great stories there, as well as about all your old favourite failed teams like Andrea Moda. Highly recommend checking it out. It's part of where I may have stolen the upcoming story series I was going to be doing for the channel from. I'm going to be doing a series where I tell old football stories, because I've got loads of old football. I can tell old football stories all day. I can tell old football stories. And I'm currently writing up the first two before I record them. And one of them, because I haven't decided on a release order for them yet. One of the stories I will be doing will be the classic tale of the true story of Brian Clough's 44 days at Leeds, because there's a lot that wasn't in the movie. There's a lot that was deliberately omitted or changed for the book that the movie was based on. I happen to own both of Clough's autobiographies, and a copy of a book written that's sort of a response to The Damned United by the actual Yorkshire Post journalist who was covering Leeds at the time, who very much debunks a lot of the claims in the film and the book, because he was there at the time. He knew what was going on behind the scenes. So I want to kind of tell the actual full story of that from all the sources I can gather. The other story I'm going to be telling is going to be a story that not a lot of people are familiar with, which is weird because there was a book about it, which is how I came to know this story. There's an Italian club called Castel di Sangro Calcio from the city of, or I say city, it's not really a city, from the town of Castel di Sangro, which is in the Abruzzese region of Italy. And there, it's a small town. It's a town of about 5,000 people. That was devastated during the war. Absolutely devastated. Like there were barely roads going to it. Like they were in real trouble after the war. And just to kind of keep up hope, the young lads of the village they'd start playing football with balls of rolled up anything they could find, and eventually the local priest arranged a game against a local town. They had to walk down some abandoned train lines to get there and play, and that's kind of how the story of them starts. It's a really interesting story how it starts. They won the game and got chased out of the village they'd just beaten and all sorts of stuff. But then come, this, like I said, it's always a small village, a really small village after the war. And then come the 80s and the 90s, they started to make their way up the Italian league system. So they came from the, what would be, I guess, they call it the third tier, but obviously whatever the third tier is in Italian, which I can't remember, the Tercera Liga or whatever. But it's actually basically pub football. And they work their way up through to the first tier, which is actually the fifth tier of Italian football. And eventually, by the mid-90s, had found their way into Serie B. Just through sheer fluke. They'd not really spent any money on the team. They couldn't afford to be where they were. And there's a whole bunch of things that go on behind the scenes. A couple of the players were killed in a car accident, and there was some kind of mafia corruption involved. And really good story. The original book is called The Miracle of Castel di Sangro by a guy called Joe McGuinness, who is also sadly no longer with us, which I recommend reading in full. But I'm going to kind of tell the abridged version of the story because McGuinness stops telling the story after he leaves Castel di Sangro. He went to kind of join the team camp for their first season in Serie B, and a lot happened after that that isn't in the book, that I'd quite like to kind of tell as the longer version of the story, because I don't want to spoil too much, but they were in Serie B where they didn't have any right to be, and they currently play in the 7th tier, I think, of Italian football. So they came from obscurity, just driven by sheer force of will, and desire to, because Castel di Sangro is in one of the poorest parts of Italy. Like, poverty that we don't even associate with a Western country exists in that region. And for them to be up nearly touching the big boys, within an inch of playing Milan, and they did eventually beat Fiorentina in a cup game a couple of seasons later. To be up there with the big boys was a miracle for them. It was unthinkable. It is the Italian football equivalent of your local pub's team getting to the championship. Except your local pub's team happens to be from somewhere on poverty levels we associate with Oxfam adverts. Like, it's mad. It's mad how poor that region is. So yeah, I'll be telling that story, and any other suggestions people have for great football stories, I will happily kind of research them and tell the stories, because I think that's something. I think one of the greatest things we have as people is the ability to tell stories to each other. I think oral history is just as important in many ways as recorded history. Recorded, written history. I think people don't tell enough stories to each other, and I think being able to find these stories, and yes, I'm finding them written down. I'm not finding necessarily oral histories, but being able to find them, record them, and share stories with people is a real kind of defining thing for us as people. So I'd like to be able to do that. So hopefully, some of you guys, if you're here for the motor racing, but you like your football, definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel Chasing Lamely, and come along for those stories, because some of the stories I can tell are, they're really stuff you don't hear about every day. One of the episodes I have planned, because it's my club. I'm a Swindon fan, and we have had an interesting history of incredibly dodgy chairmen. I don't know why I've got a virtual safety car. We have this wonderful history of incredibly dodgy chairmen who are not to be trusted, have done a certain amount of money laundering, and I think it's an interesting examination of of modern football and this thing where it's become a plaything for businessmen. My control batteries, of course, are low, which is not ideal. So good job I'm in one-player mode now, not online mode. I can switch them out if I need to. Yeah, it's just there is some interesting stories out there to be told, and I'd like to do an episode on the collapse of Bury FC as well, because I think there's a story there that needs to be told, and because I do have training as a journalist, I'm able to do that digging and find the full story, and I suspect I know where the trail leads. I believe it leads to a chairman who got greedy and put his bank balance ahead of the club he slowly destroyed through incompetence. But I'd like to be able to follow that paper trail and tell that story in full, because I think it's important that people learn from this. That and I say people learn from this because we're in the middle of this transfer saga going on, this takeover saga going on at Newcastle, and the people looking to take over Newcastle United are not good people. I mean, Mike Ashley's not exactly a saint, but we're dealing with organised criminals and murderers of the highest degree taking over Newcastle. And I think we need to have a long conversation about who we let take over football clubs. And I think Bury is a really good, very recent example of why you have to be cautious with that. So hopefully I'll be able to tell that story and tell it in full, and figure out where that went wrong. I'd love to be able to pull that apart and figure out where that went badly wrong. But this is an unusual amount of football talk whilst motor racing. I don't know why I've done this, but yeah, such is life. Obviously, if you guys want to talk about anything, you let me know in the chat, and I can literally talk about pretty much anything fairly. I mean, actually, if Kate's still in the chat, Kate knows this better than a lot of people, I think. I'm more than willing to carry on a conversation about almost anything, and I can talk, so it keeps things entertaining for the people who are watching the stream back. Who are, after some of the stuff I said, if anyone gets through to the end of the stream, or sits watching the stream past the point where I crashed out of the race, I have a feeling my comment section's going to go a bit mad, because I dare suggest that Lewis Hamilton may not be the greatest Formula 1 driver of all time. But he's not, it's a fact, and I can prove it with numbers. But also, I've said a few controversial things about Newcastle's new owners, or potential new owners, and Swindon's history of owners, and some other stuff. So this could be an interesting thought experiment for the YouTube algorithm, which is already causing problems for those who don't necessarily follow the politics of YouTube. Because I've only recently I've been on YouTube for 3 years now. I've only recently taken an interest in the politics of YouTube. But they've started recently silencing commentary channels. If you offer commentary on anything, no matter how controversial, no matter how factual the commentary you offer, unless you belong to a big corporation, they are currently nerfing channels. And one of the channels that went recently was Tipsters. And I don't necessarily always agree with everything Tipster said, but I admire the way he is willing to tackle an issue, and he's willing to be honest about an issue, and that he has the guts to just stand up and say, I believe this is wrong, let's do this, let's talk about this properly. He recently went after that's the wrong choice of words. He started covering a story about the YouTuber Susie Liu, who started trying to copyright strike anyone and everyone for reasons that no one fully understands, and turns out she's got some friends at YouTube who have been, anyone who's dared to criticise her, that she's found out about, because I've done it and she hasn't found out yet, she has had removed from YouTube, which is slightly dangerous to the precedent. And also, it's funny because the first thing that she did that came to everyone's attention was she copyright striked someone's video, because they used a short clip of one of her videos with her reacting to something as part of a joke to explain their reaction to something else, which is fair use. It's perfectly allowed within the YouTube terms, perfectly legal. But she decided to do that. But then because this outraged so many people that she decided to stoop so low, because it was a like an 11-second clip of her screaming or something. Like it was a nothing. It was a nothing use of a video. Even if they just put that up, you wouldn't bother copyright striking it unless you were completely insane. This whole drama started where people who'd never heard of her before started looking into her and found out she'd uploaded whole episodes of anime titled as reaction videos, where you have the whole episode taking up about 2/3 of the screen, and her reacting, which is basically her staring at the screen, pulling faces. So basically, she was just giving away full series of anime for nothing. Anyway, tips to this and a few others. Dan Swan, I think, was one, or John Swan, I forget his name. And the Quartering, who again is another guy I don't necessarily agree with politically, but I certainly, I respect the way he puts his points across. They all started looking into this, and just the horrors of what they found. She started accusing them online of bullying her, and they're all receiving strikes and bans and demonetization and stuff for apparently harassing her. But it came to light that actually she spent most of her time on Twitter bullying people, telling people to off themselves and all sorts of craziness. And I did make a reference to it in one of the Football Manager videos, one of the Passport to Home videos. And there is an episode you'll find from about a fortnight ago, I think, called Susie Lou Who, that kind of gives you the tip to go and check this out, because it's just sheer madness. And the funny thing is that she claims her boyfriend is a guy called Stejo, who is also a YouTuber, and he claims to have a law degree. So he tries to explain how what these guys are doing to her is illegal. Not one thing he says about it is correct. Not one thing he has actually ever said about the law is correct, but apparently he's a lawyer. But what do I know? I just have a law degree from one of the best universities on the planet for law, so clearly I'm the uneducated one. Yeah. Anyway, that's been a bit of a... I'm just randomly talking to fill time because there's nothing appearing in the chat, but do feel free to drop stuff in the chat, because I'm not paying serious enough attention to this race where I will cry if I hit a wall. Quite frankly, this race is a nothing race. It's just filling time. Just filling time on the stream because I felt like going live a bit longer than I was. Although ironically, even though I'm not really paying attention to the race, I haven't hit a wall yet, so I'm going to blame the safety car. I hit the wall under the safety car because there was a safety car. If there hadn't been a safety car, I wouldn't have hit the wall. And actually, in fairness, just before I hit the safety car, and if you're watching this on the replay, you can feel free to go back and you'll see it for yourself. I was saying that safety car had been out too long and it wasn't necessary. Literally just before I hit the wall, under the safety car. So, there's that. But there you go, there lies some fun. We've got about a lap left in this race. As we come down the back straight for the last time, I'd like to catch up with this Letourneau person. Although in fairness, I'm missing like half a wing, and they're in a much better car than me. A much better car than me. We'll get a nice close-up look of the '88 McLaren, the car in which Prost and Senna so famously competed for a world championship that season. Came very close to taking around the outside there and pulled out at the last minute. Oh, and that's a wheel. That's a wheel gone. That is a loss of a wheel. That was not the one. Let's use the flashback. We're not taking this massively seriously. Now we're taking it seriously. Yeah. It is one of the best Formula 1 cars ever made ahead of me. It really is one of the best. I did say I thought it was faster than the Williams in general. In a straight line for sure, I'm fairly certain it is faster. Yeah, I didn't think I'd be scrapping over 12th, but also I've been talking. I'm trying to get used to the idea of talking while I stream, being able to check chat while I stream. We'll see how this all goes. I may do another stream later on. Actually, I may come back and we'll do some iRacing fun. Because I'm slowly getting there with the iRacing. I'm slowly getting there. I can complete a couple of laps without stacking it into a wall now, which is fairly good considering I'm playing with a controller, not with a steering wheel. And that game is not designed for being played in any other way but with a sim rig. Can we take him? Can we take him? Round the outside? Round the outside? Yes, he blinked first. He blinked first, coming through the chicane. I've come through the wall of champions. Get across the line. There we go. Problem solved. Let's not brake too soon. May have lifted off. May have lifted off a bit earlier. Oh, wow. That was an experience. No surprise to see the 1998 McLaren, which is one of the fastest of all the cars, on the top step of the podium. Not even slightly a surprise, if I'm completely honest. But yeah, that's been the thing. Well, I think what we might do, guys, we might leave the stream there, because I've been up for like an hour and a half, which is more than I thought I would do. We'll do the replay. Let the replay continue in the background. Why not? This McLaren's still some of the best looking cars ever built. Yeah, I thought I think we might end it there. Like I say, I might come back with some iRacing later on, and we'll see if I can manage to keep learning how to make that work. I've definitely got the elbows out a bit early there. Not ideal at all. Yeah, so yeah, I think I'm gonna call it a day. But cheers for watching, guys, and I will see you all very, very soon.